All right, friends, family, fans, we're back with another episode of Hacking It in Hollywood. This week's guest, you typically know him on Twitter or X as PJ Tout, but his real name is John Hasselbauer. And he's joining me to speak about some Game of Thrones, some Genesis Invitational, and anything else in between. So, John, thanks for joining me, my friend.
It's good to be here, Byron. Long time coming. I've been a voyeur. I've been watching from afar, but never immersed in back nine bets until now. So I'm excited to be here.
It's taken far too long for us to get on the same show, but you know what? Hacking in Hollywood has brought us together because for the longest time I was just doing my own thing, and I was like, why? There's so many awesome, wonderful people in this industry. This gives me an opportunity to just chat to them and meet you. And I've been reading your magnificent course preview breakdown and just the genesis of golf previews, essentially. I think your article has been phenomenal over at the Lines there, and I've been a big fan since I started getting into golf. So it's fun to have you on the show, and it's kind of crazy how the world evolves. So we getting to host you on here. So let the people know what's cooking over there at the Lines and where they can find all your stuff. Get an early plug in there real quick.
Yeah. The Genesis for the Genesis. You can find I'm on thelines.com or at the Lines. I think it's the Lines US on X, the X machine. As you said, I write a weekly tournament preview article every Sunday, which is a lot easier to do now that football season is over. I was very, very bad at multitasking, and I usually write those on Sundays. So that was really bogging up my weekends, not being able to write on Sunday. So those you can expect on Sundays going forward, and all my written stuff on the Lines.
Awesome, dude. Yeah. I try to do a asking 10 questions article for Rotoballer that would come out on a Sunday. I just cannot get to stuff on a Sunday. I'm a late Sunday night guy. I cannot meet a Sunday night deadline, and props to you for getting it out there. As the tournament ends, I've always been a last minute dude. So it's just how my thing has been. And it's been really tricky to kind of get into that sync. So I let people like you do that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate your guys' commitment on that front there. Let's dive right into it, yeah, John. Chat to me. I'm going to pull up the number over here by my good friends, the Tour Junkies. They've run this awesome site that's got all these wonderful odds alongside the model rankings that you can put together for yourself. Basically you get your model and you pop your guys right next to the odds. You can kind of see where you want to go there. So use code Maniac for that. John, talk to me how do you go about kind of, before we actually get into this, talk to me how you go about your week. Like what does it take to come to a outright or a top 10 or top 20 bet for you, or in general, just DFS? Like what's your little quick process to kind of arrive at players?
Yeah, I think I start to evaluate like how afraid I am at the top of the board. And if I just am very worried that the best player is going to win, then I at least try to have like a very tight card of like, who do I think could beat that guy? If I'm not concerned about the top of the board, then I build a much longer card. But I'm always very structured about my risk reward. Every card I build is the same units in to pay out the same units each. So if I bet, one guy at 7-1, I'll have one favorite on my card and a card of 1. If I fade all the favorites and I have a bunch of guys that are 50-1, I'm going to have like 20 guys on my outright card. But I am very like structured in that. So I never really waver. I hit Nick Taylor last week, which is
yes, dude.
My
Congrats, man. Hell yes.
Love that. Actually, yeah. Fun fact. I've been documenting my bets since January 2021. So 3 years. I think I've hit 22 outright since then. Nick Taylor is the first golfer I've hit multiple times. Is that crazy? To me, that was a crazy stat. I've never had a repeat winner who's cashed for me twice in an outright. So Nick Taylor's officially my boy. If you ever hear me talk about Nick Taylor, it's always going to be my boy, Nick Taylor.
My boy.
It's almost like a Sir situation. Like, yes, Sir Elton John. Like, he's now earned my boy, Nick Taylor. So that's a
where
huge
was the first time you hit him?
At the RBC, Canadian, yeah.
Wow. So back-to-back winners for you there.
Back-to-back playoff wins for Nick Taylor. I mean, obviously, my boy, he's just coming through left and right. And he's one of those guys who you don't really lose money on Nick Taylor. There's so many outrights who you're like, Cam Young, I just bet this guy every week and I'm down. If I win, I'm going to lose money, whatever. Nick Taylor, you're never even thinking to bet this guy most weeks, and I probably only bet him like one other time outside of those two. So
Dude,
the Nick Taylor fan club begins right here.
hell yes, dude. I love that because my buddy sent me a text message this morning. He's like, "There's no way you had Nick Taylor on your outright card," and I sent him a write up that I had for Pebble that I had Nick Taylor on, and I've been betting him like all year. And for some reason, I just decided to not bet the guy at this event, and I could not believe what happened. And I had Sahith and Burns, so I was like, it was just like a double dip of what could have gone wrong went wrong, but it's all good. So keep on going there, John. Tell me a little bit more about what you get up to and why.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was like half a thought that went on a tangent. But yeah, I always have structure. I always like kind of evaluate the top of the board. Do I want favorites or not? I'm big on course history, but also comp course history. So when I do my research, I'm really like looking at not only like it's really always three factors for me. It's four factors. It's course history, recent form, course fit, and comp course history. It's always some sort of combination of those four. Some weeks, if you're at Augusta, you're going to be heavy on course history. If it's a brand new course you've never seen before, you got to go heavy on recent form and course fit without having the other two variables. So every week is a puzzle with different variables, which that's what I love so much about golf is that no 2 weeks are the same. No 2 years are the same, right? Like we preview the Genesis every year, but there's a new field now and it's a signature event. Tiger's here. And John Rahm won last year, but he's not here anymore. So it's like, it's always fresh. It never feels repeated. But yeah, a week like Genesis, small field, tough conditions, major, like tests you in all facets of your game. I want exposure to the best players. I don't foresee the ridiculous trend of triple digit odds winners winning every single week, continuing through this.
Cool. We can get into that because that's an interesting chat to have too. So you're part of the Floyd Mayweather side of golf betting where you don't necessarily, you want to check a lot of boxes versus kind of run a model, get your guy, figure out where he's going there. Do you use a model at all, or do you just kind of check boxes?
Yeah, very familiar with Bet the Number. Actually, I am overdue on some announcements myself. But
there we go, dude. Well,
the friend of the program.
Yes,
my guys Bet the Number too. They're in the Nick.
Our guys, let's go. Yes.
But yeah, this is where I make my models too. So I love this interface.
Beautiful. Well, let's go. I don't know. Someone in the chat here asked, "Are you Danish?" I don't know if that's me. I mean, the South African flag's right over my shoulder, so I'm assuming Hasselblad is maybe you. Are you Danish?
9. I'm German. Well, a generation removed from German.
Yes. Cool. All right, so let's get right into it. Back or 9. I love how you said 9 there because that's what we do on this show. Back 9 bets. I'm going to give you, and we're going to kind of flip between outright bets or a top 10. We're going to use Bet the Number here and kind of go top 5, top 10, top 20 across the board. And I'll give you some options. I'm going to give you 2 guys. You either back one or you say 9 to the other. And that's just kind of how we're going to be going down the board. You don't have to give away any of your picks or bets that you've made. I'm assuming they are in your article if people want to go read that. If you do, feel free to toss those out as you want. So right off the bat here, let's go back on 9 at the top of the board. Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy at 11-5 and 11-2. Let's not speak about them in an outright situation. Let's speak about them from a DFS side. Back or 9, Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, 11-5, 11-2.
Man, I just feel like Scotty Scheffler can't not finish top 10 here. That minus 140 looks really good to me. I would back the top 10 on Scotty.
Nice. I asked you for DFS, but I don't mind the top 10.
All right.
All good.
Sorry.
My mind is always
my mind is always in betting terms. That's it. Okay. See, that's a harder question to answer.
Yeah.
Because DFS, you could talk yourself into anyone, really. Scheffler's going to tear this place apart tee to green. Poa is not the surface that I think he's just going to automatically figure it out. He looks so lost on the greens. I think I would go 9 in. I would go 9 in DFS because I don't think it's worth the premium. I think there's a lot of value in good informed players with really good Riviera history where, last week I was all over Scotty Scheffler in DFS. All my lineups had him, regardless of price. This week, I think you can get away from it.
Yeah, it's going to be chalky again. I think, especially considering they just refuse to price this guy in the 12K range. It's just, they don't want to do it. I mean, it doesn't reflect the odds that they put out there. Like plus 650, that should be pretty close to 12K in my opinion in such a field like this. But hey, so you backing Rory, saying 9 to Scotty.
I love Rory Riviera, especially if he gets a little bit of an ownership discount, which I think he will. Yes. 300. I mean, he's cheaper, but he's not Scotty, and we haven't seen him as much. And he blew up at Pebble, which is the last signature event. So I think people will be a little skittish on this. So much to feel good about with so many elite players. And Rory and Vic feel like the only guys who've thrown up a dud. I guess you could throw Homa in there too, who've thrown up a dud recently. Yeah. And you're going to get an ownership discount on that. So I would buy low on Rory.
All right. So you back in Rory. I think I'm going to, in DFS, if I were to choose between the two, I'm probably going Scotty. I just can't ever get Rory right. I can't figure his stuff out. He's just an emotional mess for me. He just reminds me of myself on the golf course. And I just don't know, like it's going well or it's going horrifically. There's no real in between. Whereas Scotty, I feel like, he's going to, but again, like I've never been able to get Scotty and the other 5 guys right. I can always get Scotty right. I can never get his 5, accomplices together. And that's the hard part of DFS, dude. So even at 11.5, it'll be tricky, but all right, cool. So let's do this. Yeah. We go Max Homa and Victor Hovland. 14 to 1, 18 to 1 to win this tournament. Back or 9?
Really good pairing there because both of them suit the course so well, have good course history, and are coming in with a little shaky performances that are kind of inexplicable.
See, I'm a good host. I answer the hard questions.
You would be like, yeah, when you look up matchups and you see 2 together, you're like, oh, there's somebody like a human put those together because those are
exactly.
Those are I don't understand what's going on with Victor. There's a lot of like he's not working with Mayo anymore. He's changing the short game stuff. They're putting video boards up to block his like where he would go on the other side of that hole.
Yeah.
He's not gaining even close on approach. He's like losing 2+ the last couple of weeks. Like there's a lot that I don't love there. I definitely prefer Ludwig for all the same reasons I would like Victor. So I'm going to go 9 on Vic, and I have way more course history to go off of with Homa, where he's just always good regardless of form coming in. So I'm still going to back Homa.
Yeah, I think Max Homa definitely suits this course a little more, even though Vic has played well in the past. And that's the thing, dude. Both of these guys' recent form is very, very sketchy right now. And I'm not entirely sure. Like when Max's putter has been bad in back-to-back like events, that gives me a concern because that's his thing. That's his bread and butter, especially on courses like Pebble at the Farmers, like just wasn't rolling the rock properly. So I'm probably out on both of them, but considering this is the hard-hitting back or 9 segment, I think I'm going to actually go with Hovland because I feel like he's going to be one of the leverage options at the top. Yeah, I think everyone's freaking out about him. Doesn't necessarily have that Max Homa California narrative runs rampant, in the DFS street. So I think definitely kind of leaning into the Hovland as a little pivot off Max, who's, the same kind of situation there, is going to be an interesting little take for me in that department. And then we can kind of roll out these boys. We're going to go top heavy in this segment today. Got Xander Schauffele, and let's go with his top 10 at minus 165 or Patrick Cantley for a top 20 at minus 165 and Patrick Cantley for a top 20 at minus 150. Feel free to throw in any other bets or DFS takes in that situation, but back or 9, Xander or Cantley.
I don't love either of those. Well, I would personally not bet either of those, but I would agree with Xander having shorter odds. I always get confused. It's like a double
worse
negative.
Odds.
Worse odds. He's more likely to do it, whatever.
Yes.
I agree. I remember, is this the event where Xander got like an albatross, or he like ricocheted off a stanchion for like a tap and eagle or something, right? I vividly remember, like, this is definitely the event where John Rahm got every break in the bank for
Yes.
his win, and he was ricocheting off of hospitality things and getting temporary IO relief. But I remember some shots that Xander has hit here, and he's always good in California. Cantlay, like a little bit of like a forgotten Cali guy, the Long Beach connection and all that. They're both good plays. They're both basically merging into the same person at this point. They're just consistent across the board. I can't really discern between the two, but I would lean Xander over Cantlay.
I would too. From what I've gathered in my historical understanding of these two, Xander is a much better top 20 option, and I think Cantlay is a much better top 10 option. He typically gives you a bit more upside. If I remember my percentages correctly, you can come tomorrow where we can dissect that stuff on my Back Nine Bet show where we do the betting stuff. So that my model will be up there for that. So that's going to be interesting to kind of see how people navigate those two, because they are similar prices as well. Actually, Cantlay, $800 cheaper. So I think, would you have gone to Cantlay if I offered you a DFS option?
Yes. I'm not going out. I mean, it's really hard to take stances this week. There's just so much. I would say everyone from Scheffler to Ludwig on this list has good history.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, Ludwig doesn't, but like, he has great history on the California swing everywhere he's made his debut so far. So you would assume that that's going to continue on. This won't throw him for a loop. So price is a good, like, if I'm flipping a coin, I don't know how to make a choice here. I'll probably just cheap out and take some of the cheaper options, eat some chalk, and then differentiate, further down the board.
Let's go. I love it. And I think this week in a signature event, that's definitely possible. There's some guys down there that you can definitely dive into and kind of make sure that you got some high upside guys that are a really affordable price. So we can get into that shortly, but I want to throw you another curveball here. Got Sam Burns and Adam Scott at 20-1 and 25-1, $8,700 and $8,200. Back on 9, the outright side of these things for Sam Burns at 20-1, or back on 9, Adam Scott at 25-1 at DraftKings. That price has come down quite a lot.
Yeah, it sure has. I'll take Burns here over Scott. I understand the course history is great. I just haven't seen Scott put 4 good rounds together in a long time. I know he's had some pretty good results overseas. But I just haven't really. He does not strike me as a bet I want to make it 25-1. I'd much rather have Spieth at the same price looking at this. But obviously, I think he's number one in total strokes gained at Riviera. The course history is predictive and all of that. But I'll take Burns for the upside in the outright market.
Cool. I would too at this price tag. I did grab an Adam Scott this morning at 40-1.
Sure,
I think that was
a different story for sure.
Totally different situation. I think that price was a little reckless by BetMGM there, and I think since then it's been hammered down a bit. So thank you for them for putting that out there, because I was at the top of the board in my other outrights. But I do like those two names. I think they both got great. They're completely opposite to Victor and Max, right? They both got some good course history and are playing good golf right now, man. Sam Burns is starting to feel it. He's playing good golf this year, hitting it a mile as well.
Burns should have won the year that Homa won. He had like a massive 3-round lead, and then he really choked it on Sunday. Yeah. But he tore this course apart his first time playing it, I remember. So definitely a fit.
Mm-hmm. And then our man from the Nut Hutch, AK Alan Klutz, said Scheffler almost has to win at this price. I don't know about that, AK. He said play a 3v1 such as Burns, Aberg, Morikawa combo. That's an interesting proposition. I don't know if, like Scotty has to win, because there's so much winning potential. There's so much win equity in a signature event field. I think you can have Scotty as your kind of core piece that's still going to finish inside the top 5. I mean, the odds for Scotty to finish inside the top 5 are plus 165. That's like almost top 10 is between that. Top 7.5 is even money, essentially. So, I mean, he's going to be finishing 50% of the time or so inside the top 10, So I don't know. What's your take on the Scheffler price there from AK?
It's all about how you feel about the bottom of the board for me. If I've got a long shot that I love, there's somebody in the low 6Ks. that I feel good about having more exposure, like 30% of my lineups to complement Scheffler. That's really what dictates first and foremost for me how top heavy I get with my exposure. So yeah, I mean, these guys are priced out here for a reason. Maybe like a Bo Hostler is in great form, right? He's not somebody that you would expect to be a great fit for this course, but 7,000.
All
Throw
right.
him and
Bo
Grillo.
Hostler,
They're ball
Emiliano
striking.
Grillo, back or 9.
Ooh, I actually would probably go Grillo. Um, yeah, he's ball striking well. The putter looks a little bit better. This is the type of course that I think suits him a little better.
Dude, and Grillo, if you take a look at his like approach numbers from 150 to 200, that's where about 45% of shots, almost 50% of shots are going to be coming from this week. Very concentrated buckets, way more than tour average in those two departments. He's very freaking. He shot a casual. What, he shoot 8 under par on Sunday yesterday?
Did
Grillo
he?
just 8 or 7, and I think it was bogey free as well. Like the guy just went to town on that golf course. So it was crazy to see. I think he led the field in round 4 of tee to green strokes gained. So I mean, he's playing some good golf right now. He just also has these moody teenage 9s where he just kind of completely forgets that he's playing golf, gets mopey, makes a few bogeys, makes a double or two, and just kicks himself out the tournament. But Bo also just seems like he's a mopey guy walking around the golf course. Always has one round where he gets a little too close to the sun, just spontaneously combusts himself, and that's the end of Bo. Like he'll come in roaring up the leaderboard on Sunday again to finish T8, and that's how he does it. Whereas I think Grillo, if he finds himself in the mix, I'm not going to call him the Nick Taylor, but he's definitely he can hang. When he's under the gun, he tends to hang a bit better than a few of these other guys like Patrick Rogers, Taylor Montgomery, Brendan Todd. This is the choke chamber, yeah, right? So you just got like everybody down here just does not like pressure. So cool. So since we'll do one more, and then we kind of get into the meat and potatoes here of the Game of Thrones hacking at Hollywood. Give me, and I'm going to try and come up with two guys that have similar pedigree and playing some good golf both. Luke List and Patrick Rogers sitting at 68 and 66K, 66,000, 6,600. Holy cow. Price tag on DFS there. Back or 9, Luke List or Patrick Rogers?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. You would think some overlapping farmers pedigree would work here at Torrey. I've definitely bet. Yeah, at Poa, like I've bet Luke List in this event before. He's missed some startlingly short putts here to the point where I think I probably swore to myself I would never do it again. But for a DFS play, he can't. Well, I can't say he can't miss the cut because apparently, if you're not within 10 strokes after 2 rounds, you can miss the cut.
And I think top 50 of the 70. So 20 guys aren't playing if they're outside the top 10 strokes.
I don't think putting alone will resort him to the very bottom of this board.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling a little bit better about Luke List. I'm not totally up to speed on what Patrick Rogers has been doing lately. And I know he is a California guy who does well in POA, but feels a little more erratic to me than Luke List.
All right. So backing Luke, 9ing Rogers.
Yeah.
I'd probably lean the same way. I think that's where I'd be. Rogers also I know if Luke List finds himself in the mix, he's going to hang to a degree outside of his 2 final holes of last week, because I had him in a 6 for 6 that turned into a 5 for 6. Thank you, Luke. Triple bogey on his final hole in round 1. Took, I think, 5 shots from the green side bunker. Made a 7. He was in there for 2. Not 5 shots from the bunker. It took him 5 shots to get from the bunker into the hole. I think 3 shots or so came from the bunker. And then the following day, he finishes his round on 18, I believe, and has to get up and down from in front of the green, completely blades the shit out of it. Zooms it across the green, almost into the stand. Next, almost holds the chip back to kind of make the par that he needed. But he, under the gun, Short game was just not available for Luke List. He was drawing blanks in that department, and I think this week it'll be a bit better for him. I think like the rough, because what we go from like a desert course with like a little more touchy collection areas with tight grass to Riv, where it's going to be more so thick cabbage, not cabbage, but thick rough that's going to be hard to hold the greens from around them, right? So I think that's kind of the situation between the two courses, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I just looked back because I did have a visceral reaction to Luke List at Riviera in the back of my head, and I had to figure out why. He lost 7.1 strokes putting last year and gained 10.8 strokes tee to green. And I definitely bet him outright last year. So, which was not even like his bottom 7 worst career putting performances.
No.
So I don't know what to do with that information. He played tee to green well enough to win the tournament. But he's Luke List and he's going to do that. And even though he won the Sanderson Farms, like he's not immune to losing 7 strokes again. So won't be an outright for me this year, but in a toss up with Rogers, I'll go with List.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, buddy, what the people came here for, what you came here for, you'll be putting out tons of other DFS content, other betting content. I'll be doing the same. So, we gave the people 25 minutes there. It's time for Game of Thrones hacking in Hollywood. This segment has been one of my favorites to do. I get to like meet my guests and their favorite TV show that hasn't been chosen already or not watched by me. Because Kenny tried to make me watch Lost and I wasn't going to binge that in like, so we went with a different one. But this show is arguably one of the greatest shows ever for the first 7.5 seasons. And then. So give me your take on why Game of Thrones is your favorite and why you chose it for our. I mean, the character comps are going to be through the roof. We can almost do like 3 episodes of this stuff, but we're going to do our best to give our few takes.
Yeah, there's so many characters that it actually makes this harder than if I picked a sitcom with like 5 of them, because you really want to interweave the same narratives of how multiple characters play off of multiple characters, which is harder to do in golf, but possible. So I tried to do that with some of these, but I think Succession was off the board, and I was thinking about doing Succession. That's a very fun one to do because it's a little bit more contained. But with Game of Thrones, I up until the end of last year worked at HBO since 2016, so I have a very long affinity with HBO. I worked on the last 3 seasons of Game of Thrones, I want to say. I went to the premiere at Radio City, breathed the same air of a lot of these actors, so I didn't get that close to them. I was in the nosebleeds, but I was there, I was present. So I've always loved Game of Thrones. Working on the final season was a real treat.
What did you do, John? What did you like, if you don't mind me asking?
So media advertising, so paid media.
Okay. Hell yes, dude. That's so freaking cool.
The easiest job in the world is getting people to be aware that the final season of Game of Thrones is coming. Like, we literally didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But no, it was really fun. With you, a little bit disappointing. And I always say, like, when we talk about the final season of Game of Thrones, had they just not shortened it to 6 episodes and made it a full 8, I think everybody would have been really happy. It felt a little bit rushed at the end, and you could have used a filler episode, a backstory on maybe the Night King gets an episode, or the journey to go from Winterfell down to King's Landing being its own episode would have been nice. They ran out of production budget. It was the most expensive season in television history, and they had to do 6 episodes. So it is what it is. I did actually just re-binge it probably a year ago. And I have to say, after re-binging it, a lot of the scrutiny on some of the character writing made a lot more sense to me. So Daenerys at the end turning, like, it was foreshadowed. Arya being the star at the end, that was foreshadowed. So I think the writing was better than it was discredited for in the end of the show. And obviously it's in the pantheon. It's right up there with The Sopranos, The Wire, Breaking Bad. Like, I could have picked any of those 2, but I'm more intimately familiar with Game of Thrones than any of the other shows.
Let's go, dude. I love it. And nothing more intimate, if you ask me, than a Jamie Lannister,
Whew.
who you decided to display as or portray as Keegan Bradley. Give me your reasons.
Yes. All right, let me pull my notes up for this guy.
That's a good point. I also have to find mine real quick.
I had a few entendres and stuff. So with Keegan, I think it starts with, and Jamie, born with all the tools to be great, blessed with a great skill set. With Keegan, the ball striking has always been, everything it needs to be one of the greats. With Jamie, he's a Lannister. He's won battles early on. And they proved it early on. Keegan wins the PGA straight out the gates. Jamie is a very young knight for the Lannister army. He proves himself. And then I would equate Jamie losing his hand to Keegan losing the belly putter. All of a sudden, old reliable Jamie Lannister with the right hand, wizard, can do it all, has to relearn and reinvent himself a little bit. Use the left hand, be a little bit more tactical. And with Keegan, he had to experiment a lot, and it was not an easy road for him. He had to find himself. He was very bad for a long time. Jamie had to kind of eat shit for a little bit on that journey with Brienne. Quite literally. Yeah. So they went through that journey together, and then they came back triumphantly, and Keegan is back to winning. But they haven't had it all. It wasn't a very happy ending for Jamie Lannister in Game of Thrones. With Keegan, he didn't quite make the Ryder Cup, but he still has that edge to him when we talk about, like, in match play, getting in that fight at Austin Country Club, the match play event.
Yes.
And that's a tenacity that I see in Jamie Lannister too. So I just, for a lot of reasons, it may not strike you in the nose that these two are one and the same, but I think they have a lot in common.
Oh my God. They have great. I'm surprised. I kind of immediately glommed onto the resiliency of each character, but the whole losing his hand to losing the putter is, a great comp. And I feel like we kind of went along the same route there, because I went with Scotty and Jamie. And I know I portrayed them as a different kind of, I gave your Jamie a bit more of a guttery, grubby feel, because I feel like that's a bit more Keegan blue collar in a way. Whereas Scotty, the golden child, dad's favorite boy, always in the golden armor. The majority of his game is golden armor plated. But if his game was a body, his putter is a missing hand. And that's just, to me, he's just missing a hand to like a very essential bodily feature. And if that ever comes around, we're going to see exactly where we saw Jamie as early on. And we're going to see who Scotty was when he kind of came out the gates until he forgot how to putt. So another few comps. I mean, obviously, Scotty Scheffler holds a record for the most money ever made in a single season by a PGA Tour player. Jamie Lannister, the Lannisters obviously mega loaded on the bankroll side of things there. I mean, the guy's hand's like gold. So, that's got going for him there. And then Jamie traveled. He traveled throughout the series. I feel like he was hardly ever at what the hell's the place called? Not Winterset. It's the main King's Landing.
Rock?
King's Landing. He was everywhere. He was everywhere. He was hardly at King's Landing for the majority of the show. Kind of traveling around the map, kind of like Scotty Scheffler's feet. I feel like there's some comps in that department there with the traveling. Scotty's feet just never in the same place, always moving around. I feel like that kind of was another reason I kind of went in that department. So that was my quick take on Jamie and how he becomes Scotty. So I like how we both had the putter being the hand that was missing. And then you kind of, I was great. I mean, because before my guests send me their guys, I always make sure I do mine first. If there's overlap, there's overlap. That's fine. It's organic. I don't want to have people influence my choices. I was spamming gifts off to you, so I just couldn't see what you were sending through. So apologies for that. But you did send through, and I like to pride myself on trying to paint the picture that my guests trying to do. So you chose Khal Drago and Hideki Matsuyama as your next comp. I obviously put Hideki with the paint on his 3-wood where he got disqualified, and Khal, he's got his paint on his chest here. You do
That's
the
great.
rest.
Not exactly where I was going, but I understand the connection. Yeah. So with this one, I've got two foreigners from a very different continent from where everything else is going on. And the through line for this to me is their connection to Daenerys, which we'll get to, but I think is important for the analogy that I've got Jay Monahan as our Daenerys, and I think they're two unlikely partners, Hideki and Jay and Khal Drogo and Daenerys. Not what you would expect, but once they're together, they kind of realize how much they need each other.
Yes.
Or really a one-sided need for each other, I would say. Jay Monahan needs Hideki. Can't lose him. Probably the most valuable asset to the PGA Tour that nobody talks about. I mean, if you lose that Japan market, you're in deep, deep trouble. So Jay Monahan absolutely loves Hideki Matsuyama, and that Daenerys and Khal Drogo love is a connection that I feel like was unmistakable. And, two men of very few words who are still warriors, still battle tested, proven in battle. You don't want to cross these guys. Hideki's got a green jacket. Khal Drogo's got a long beard of men that he's killed. And very susceptible to moderate injuries.
That was the first thing I was thinking about.
Yeah, like Khal Drogo gets a little cut and he's dead. Hideki Matsuyama wakes up on the wrong side of the bed and he can't play in the Masters. It's like, what are we doing, guys? You're warriors.
Yeah.
Get over it.
Very susceptible to moderate injuries is like the line that I love the most so far, dude. That is so fitting for these two guys. It's hilarious. The frailty of both these juggernauts, it's just incredible. So, I mean, is that it? Because I mean, you just ended just like haymaker to end it there. I mean, I love that.
That's my case.
I love it. The susceptibility of injuries is just through the roof.
Ooh, this is
all good. Right. So I probably would have rolled this out prior. It might have been Max Homer before Nick Taylor took care of business yesterday. This is the day after the Waste Management Phoenix Open, where Nick Taylor just birdied the 18th hole 3 times in a row, went 5 under par in his final 6 holes of tournament golf, including the playoffs, to win the Waste Management Phoenix Open. He's now also, your boy, won the RBC Canadian Open. And both times he's won the last 2 tournaments, he's had this emphatic putter drop. Like he's holding the putter, just completely drops it in like, get this out of my hands. It is scorching hot. I cannot hold on to this smoldering piece of iron that has won me now back-to-back tournaments. Aya Stark, same situation. She drops that dagger from one hand, not quite like Nick. She grabs it with the other and takes care of business, stabs the Night King right where he likes it, and bam, everyone just blows into shards of glass or ice or whatever these guys are made of. Other aspects of their characteristics, just complete savages. Anytime Nick Taylor finds himself in contention, it's like, God rest the other person's soul, because that person's going to lose. It's Nick Taylor or bust. His closing out rate is one of the top in the PGA Tour. Anytime it happens, the putter just comes to his rescue, along with just the rest of his game in general is phenomenal. So, and to finish it off, they're both from the north. Nick Taylor from Canada, Aya Stark from Winterfell. So those are my 3 kind of comps across the board there. The most being the savage, but the putter drops are starting to become a thing for old BD. So
I was hoping you would dovetail it with being from the north, because that's the connection that I saw too. I also think like Nick Taylor is almost like the golfer has no name. Like it's such a generic name that you might as well not even have a name. Like if he was Nikolai Tailington, he would be so much more popular. Everyone would bet him so much more. He would never be 175 to 1. But he's Nick Taylor. It's like you just miss it scrolling through the board.
Yes, dude. And you got to scroll all the way down to 175 to 1 if you wanted to cash that ticket at the Waste Management. So props to you there once again. And speaking of your boy, I feel like we're going to have to hash a few things out here, John.
Yeah, this is not a very deep one, but I feel like obviously Spanish, that connection right off the bat. Um, Somebody who was right on the precipice of victory, and then just got absolutely humiliated in front of the largest crowd you could see. In this analogy, the creek on the 18th hole at Southern Hills is the mountain. And actually, I yelped out a scream when they panned to his ball in the river, equal to Oberon's wife in this scene. So that's all I have for this. It's as simple as that.
It's straight to the point, very very personal for you because Mito was your guy. I think you might have been the only person that I knew that had Mito Pereira to win the PGA. At Southern Hills, and then
300 to 1.
300 to win a major. Not just some John Deere Classic, the freaking PGA Championship. 71 holes. All he had to do was bogey that hole to get into a playoff, right? And it was a double, right? If I remember correctly.
That is correct. And now he's on live, which his PGA career is mutilated with his dead body. So
yeah,
poetic justice.
But his PGA Tour remnants will forever flow through the creeks of Southern Hills. So, yes. And you know what was really funny is we had a overlap in this department. Like, this is such an abstract character for a comp, but yet we both had Oberon Martel as our comp for two perennial. I mean, Mito more emphatic and concentrated at the PGA Championship, whereas Tommy Fleetwood more so just a death by 1,000 US soil paper cuts. I think Oberon finds himself a lot more comfortable on his home soil, back wherever he's from, in the sandy, temperate climate where Tommy Fleetwood tends to win in Dubai, over in Europe. That's where Tommy likes to be. I had a few other things that I wanted to mention about Tommy because he just couldn't figure his stuff out. They both got this elegant kind of flow of a long hair situation. And then, like you said, with Mito, just put this guy into any sort of near victory situation and his skull is just getting pummeled by these giant thumbs. And they were the last time the thumbs of Nick Taylor, and that was the mountain then. But I'm sure there'll be more mountains for Tommy to try and climb over, and I doubt that's going to ever change. So this is a perennial repeat episode with Tommy Fleetwood just continually just never getting across the finish line when he needs to on US soil.
Amazing.
Yes.
I love it.
All righty. You had Max Homer as Tyrion Lannister. And I went with this kind of a look. You could have Tyrion before he got the battle scars. You could get Tyrion, with a nice clean shaven face without the scars and stuff. I went with this one. I feel like it's going to kind of, if I'm getting what you're putting down, this is probably going to lead you into the promised land.
Yeah, I think we're on the same. We're going to get to the same point. I think there's a lot of meat on this bone. With Tyrion, it's I drink and I know things, and with Max, I think it's I golf and I tweet things. They do two things very well, and they're known for those two things. They're kind of the comic relief. They're also like the voice of reason. Like if there's ever something going on with PGA Tour policy, Max Homa throws out a tweet that's actually like, "Hey, I'm gonna take a break from being funny guy and just give you what you need to know about this thing." And Tyrion's like that with Daenerys, where it's like, "Hey, I was just cracking jokes and being drunk before, but like you should really know this." So Homa's very good at that. He always has the right thing to say in the right moment, doing the walk and talks too. Always giving us information. Now he's on the policy board, as Tyrion was on like that inner circle, whatever they call it, in Game of Thrones, hand to the queen. Like,
yes.
Is Homa the proverbial hand to Jay Monahan? Close to it, I would say. He's not the guy, but like Rory would probably be that. But he's in that ilk. And they've both gone through very long journeys to get to where they got towards the top. Homa was obviously the trials and tribulations of the Corn Ferry Tour, had these great expectations. In his collegiate amateur career, Tyrion, born a Lannister, born with great expectations, goes through the dumps. Tyrion just disbarred by his family. The imp has to kind of create a life for his own. Homa has to cut his teeth on the Corn Ferry Tour. Eventually gets back on top, thrives, creates all this popularity, earns the trust of all his peers. He gets top 10 in the world. And that's all well and good. But I think there is also this element of disappointing in the biggest moments where Tyrion is trusted to be sort of this general and strategize in the wars, and he gets out on the battlefield and he gets sliced right away. He's not there anymore.
Yes.
He plots the attack on the Lannisters, and he gets completely thwarted, and it's a complete disaster, and he fails at being the general to the army. That's kind of his whole job, and that's Homa in Majors. He's built himself up in every step of the way to earn our trust. But when he gets into the biggest moments, the biggest battles, he's nowhere to be seen.
Oh, touche, dude. You're closing these arguments like just with absolute haymakers. I love the major flaw in his character right now, and that's just stepping up when it matters most. However, in kind of like minor instances of panic and chaos, he's reliable, which is kind of interesting. Like massive cataclysmic situations, not quite there, but he's definitely always going to find himself taking care of business when it's least expected of him. And I'm going to go with my Tyrion take here. I've got a bit of a double dip with Tyrion and Cersei and Spieth and Grella, because in my opinion, Jordan Spieth being Tyrion is just, it's a home run for me, because neither will shut up. They just can't stop speaking. But whatever they say, it has us on the end of our seats. It's always intriguing. Whatever they have to say is captivating. It's a lot. It's almost too much at times. But if it wasn't like super captivating and super raw and super heartfelt, it most likely would be a little more irritating than it is. Also, they both struggle with impish, shortish situations in their life. Spieth has never quite mastered the 4-footer, the 3-footer with like an outside the cup break. We saw him miss a short one again this weekend. Tyrion, obviously, impish slurs, dwarf stuff, all that kind of stuff. Like we've already gone through that with you. Both of them have survived near-death experiences. Jordan Spieth found himself on the edge of the wall, so to speak, at Pebble Beach last year. The guy was probably the closest to any PGA Tour professional has ever been to dying. I'd probably say outside of getting struck by lightning. Jordan Spieth found himself right on the edge of that cliff. The guy just goes balls to the wall. Tyrion, obviously, I mean, how many times has Tyrion he's got the scars to prove it, like we saw in your graphic. He's just been in countless near-death situations. And then I wanted to mention with Spieth, they both just work miracles. Like I know you mentioned that Tyrion, in the biggest instances, doesn't quite take care of business, but they find themselves in these minor dilemmas and always seem to scramble out of them. Jordan Spieth can scramble his way out of any sort of lie, any sort of situation. Tyrion, the same situation. He's so smart. He can just kind of get himself out of any scenario. He's just a magician in that department. And then to kind of wrap it up, if you have ever bet Spieth outright and you're just sitting on the toilet scrolling through the leaderboard and seeing Jordan Spieth at the top on a Sunday, and then you see this little dwarf in your mind show up in the door with a crossbow and just pegging you between the rib cages multiple times, saying that you are the worst person for betting Jordan Spieth outright, death be you. And Spieth just ejects out of the whole tournament multiple times. I've been on him multiple times. It's ended in absolute disaster recently. And I feel like he's just been a crossbow to the heart. So that's Spieth as Tyrion. And then just real quick.
That's great.
Yeah, I know. This was my favorite one. I felt like Jordan Spieth and Tyrion just related in so many instances. And then just Grella as Cersei just wants the noise to stop. Like, just make it stop. Like, why do I have unnecessary drama in my life? Why? Like, we live in this giant castle. You have one of the best impenetrable short games in the world. Why do we always have drama? Why? The people around them always bitching. But Grella, on the low key, just like Cersei, kind of keeps the whole family together, behind the scenes. They're the glue behind the family name. And, Jordan and obviously Grill are not blood brothers, but they could be called brothers by bond. And what's the statutory limits or whatever, where you live together for long enough, you become husband and wife, but these two are brothers. And I feel like, just Grella just kind of always being that voice of reason, always keeping it together behind the scenes. So I know it was a little long piece there on my part, but the little double dip, I really felt passionate about Spieth and Tyrion. Had to go a little long.
Yeah, I'm glad you paid off the crossbow scene because I really struggled to fit that one into my narrative, and it can't go ignored. So bravo.
Dude, imagine just killing your dad with the crossbow while he's taking a shit. That's just like one of the most epic deaths in Game of Thrones. Real quick tangent, John. I know I never even asked you this. Give me like your 2 or 3 favorite deaths. I know it's a bit of a graphic question, but we're not going to show them, but we can speak about them, because Game of Thrones kind of, in that department, we can say, the toilet crossbow definitely be one of them.
Yeah, it's got to be. I liked the death by what was it, Dickon and Rickon dying together by the dragon fire. That was just like that was like an important scene that I liked.
Epic name as well.
Yeah,
epic name.
Obviously the mountain and the hound, the way they went out, that was sick. That was probably my favorite one, actually.
Yeah, no, and for them to come full circle, what did they fell into the fire at the end of the day, right? Was there flames out there?
Yeah, it's a little poetic ending.
Yeah,
for both.
Beautiful stuff. They had some good shoelaces at the end of the show there, for sure. All right, you got your boy Samuel Tarly. Tarl.
Wow.
Apologies,
man.
Apologies on the typo there. This is Tarly. We got the Y and the L backwards, but we got Jason Duffner as his comp. Hit us.
Yeah. Oh, great picture. I was thinking of the Duffnering pic of him like sitting down in the classroom, and this is way better.
I couldn't find Tarly sitting. I had that in first. Trust me, it was there, but then I just had to go back and loop background.
Yeah, I think that Duffner's known as a kind of a funny guy on tour, very smart guy too. Like a really good, respected mix of this is the funniest guy in the room. He's also the most analytically driven guy in the room. So Samuel Tarly, obviously, on the surface, he's the comedic relief on the show, always getting a laugh at his scenes. But deep down, he wants to be in the books. He's sort of he's a nerd. So Jason Duffner, I think, is low key like the biggest nerd on tour. People may not realize that. I think of Duffner as a group guy. Like whenever he's in a tournament, he's in the house with like Ricky Fowler, Jordan Spieth, and he like doesn't really belong with those brothers. Like he's very much the outcast, but he's there and they like him and they want him there. And then I think of Samuel Tarly as this guy who killed a White Walker. And nobody can kill White Walkers. And you have to be a seasoned warrior to kill a White Walker. And Jason Duffner being a major champion to me is the absolute equivalent of Samuel Tarly killing a White Walker. It's like you look back and you tell the story to everybody and you go town to town and you're like, hey, I'm Samuel Tarly. I actually killed a White Walker. And everyone's like, no, you didn't. You're a liar. You see this guy with this hair and his strokes gained and his profile, his career. And if you're Jason Duffner and you walk around and you're doing a book signing or whatever, and you're like, oh, by the way, I won a major, they would say, no, I don't believe you. No, you didn't. So I think I think for those reasons, they have a lot in common.
Dude, that is so true. And he's got his name etched into the trees of eternity, I think, at Oak Hill, right? Is that where it was?
I think you're right.
Is that where there's trees somewhere on a hill that have their names engraved into it now? So kind of like Tarly, Sammy, they've got their engravings in the history books of eternity. And I had Cam Smith as Sam Tarly as a quick hitter, just because they've both now, like, they battle hard early in the seasons, kill a White Walker, win a major, and then find the Citadel and live golf and just live happily ever. Cam just playing his 16 rounds of golf or tournaments a year with some majors here and there, fishing, boating, living is happy ever after, unicorns, pissing rainbows, all that stuff. Sam Tarley just in the Citadel, just completely and utterly bewildered by like the world that he wanted. He was destined to live, like so. That was my little quick hitter for you on the flip side there, little integration sensation. We have a few other names here. Here's my Daenerys and Drogon comp, and it's going to be Greg and Yasser. And I know before we go into this, what MSP? I had to Google his name, and I can't remember the exact.
MBS.
MBS.
Mohammed bin Salam.
Yeah. So, what are the difference between Muhammad and Yasser?
What are so Muhammad is like the Saudi Arabian prince who controls all of the government decisions, and Yasser is sort of like I believe more PIF, like the funding of, like the vision of Live is Yasser's, and the purse behind that is MBS.
Okay, so I'll change mine from Yasser to MBS, because I feel like the funding of the violence brought upon the PJ Tour came from Drogon. That was where the fire came from. That's where the impenetrable armor came from. That's where the damage and destruction originated. Whereas Greg Norman, rolling out as Daenerys, just flying around on the dragon and doing this damage on the back of it, right? Like not necessarily being the main reason why it's inflicted, but controlling where the damage gets applied, controlling how it is and when. Also, early in their career arcs, wonderful people. I've read Greg Norman's autobiography. I had him as one of my role models growing up. I mean, as an Australian, the shark, what he went through as a kid, kind of just to get to the point that he's at in the golf world, and absolutely dominate in multiple instances outside of Augusta, I guess. Couldn't quite get that figured out. But Daenerys as well, just came from the gutters. She was being sold off as a sex slave essentially by her brother, and kind of bounced back from that. Greg saying that he wants to grow the game. Daenerys kind of taking the shackles off of slavery, kind of growing the world as a whole and doing that stuff. So they've both come a long way. They were both, beaten down and downtrodden, but overcame that. And then out of nowhere, just went full bitch mode, full villain mode. Like Daenerys just burning down everything, ultimately just sacrificing suicide, kind of situation there by yet another Jon Snow blade, a more sharper, more lethal one this time. And Greg finding himself, in career suicide mode right now, because he's not part of the merger that's going on, I don't think. So he's going to just be left. He's like commentating now for Liv. He's gone from being the orchestrator to now going and walking the fairways of Vegas in like 35-degree weather. Like things aren't going the best for Greg. So to me, that was my kind of career arc in that department.
Interesting spin on that. I went a very different way with my Daenerys Drogon comps. Opposite yet the same, I guess. For me, I see Jay I see both of these characters as the good guy, the protagonist throughout for a very long time, and then ultimately burning down everything in the end. So Jay has been the trusted, like, quote unquote, rightful ruler that everything has been building up towards. He's sort of in charge. As we get towards the end of the story, we come to realize that he's actually not supposed to be in this position, and literally anybody else would be better suited to be overseeing this big kingdom than this guy. And you're just kind of hoping that he doesn't mess it up. And then it culminates in him going to the place that he's supposed to be protecting and burning it all to the ground. So I think the scene of Drogon burning down King's Landing is where we are at today, because of Jay Monahan's inept leadership, everything that we used to love about the tour and all the players that used to make it so great are eviscerated for the PGA Tour. Yeah, and he's someone who he lets everybody else kind of do the fighting for him. So you never see Daenerys on the battlegrounds. It's always somebody else who is actually like translating what his sort of
Yes.
like memos mean. So
Yeah.
he'll say a whole lot of nothing, and then everybody like Homa and Rory have to come out and be like, okay, this is actually what's going on.
And Daenerys with multiple translators throughout her seasons, or
That's
just
true. That's true.
yeah.
I guess I don't think we probably don't have a dragon slide, but I have in this analogy the three dragons under Jay Monahan as Rory as Drogon, John Rahm as Viserion, and Cam Smith as Rhaegar. I think the Drogon one with Rory is self-explanatory, very powerful, right-hand man, like doing all the damage on behalf of Jay. In the end, kind of flies away after Daenerys dies, and kind of carries him away, but like is like, all right, I'm done with this shit. That's where I think Rory is right now. Viserion, I think, is perfect for Rom because he was on the good side. He was fighting for Daenerys, gets killed in battle, then gets flipped. So the flipping to the ice becomes Liv, and then he burns down, or he tears down the wall, which is really what's kind of happening right now, where it's like once Rom went over there, now a lot more people are watching Liv. A lot more PGA fans are starting to watch Liv and be more open to it because there's just, a tipping point where there's too much talent to ignore.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel like what happened because of Viserion and because of Ron. There's no wall anymore. Things are like on the battleground happening. And Rhaegar just died. And that's Cam Smith. Like as soon as he went to Liv, he was great. He was like a weapon. He was a big weapon. He won the Open, and then he was gone. He's not good on Liv anymore. He's not competing in majors. He was at the top, and he said, "You know what? I'm good. Just pay me out, and I'm gonna fish."
Yes, dude. The fact that he just died is just hilarious. It's just that's it. But he's happy. He's happy now. He's up on the clouds doing his thing. Throwing in the old baiting worm there. So, let me dive into my final. I had a few double dips here, and I couldn't help it. We went with Bran the Broken and Hodor as Fitzy and Billy Foster. Now, there's a bit to go behind here because old Billy Foster, friends and family, has caddied for Sevi Ballesteros, Darren Clark. Sevi Ballesteros. Okay, that's like 40 years of this job. He's been just grinding away. Hodor, grey as hell. Darren Clark, Thomas Bjorn, Sergio Garcia, Tiger Woods, and Lee Westwood. Out of all those people, I don't know how many majors he obviously caddied for Tiger for. Would have won a major if he was on a few more bags there. But out of all those guys, he could never, ever get a freaking major done. Gets on the bag of Fitzy, Hodor carrying Bran around, Fitzy being Bran. Finally gets it done. And I think we kind of see what happens with Hodor's. It's like a reverse situation here because Hodor obviously dies holding the door down, but like reaches his ultimate purpose of the protector of Bran, the kind of the mobility unit, so to speak, before Bran becomes a three-eyed raven. The same with Billy Foster. He meets his ultimate purpose on the bag of Matthew Fitzpatrick, winning his first major as a caddy. Congrats to Billy Foster in that department. Both, I think I had for Fitzy. He kind of lost his ability to drive straight as Bran lost his legs to walk. But by losing that one skill set, they developed a way better one that kind of ultimately led them to the promised land with more distance on Fitzy's side of things, and Bran obviously becoming the three-eye raven, being able to drive far into the history books of the past, that kind of situation. Both of them can be super cheesy, ultra cheesy guys, very nerdy individuals, because Fitzy keeping his record books and his stats since he was like 16 or 18 or whatever in his like handheld, notebooks. Bran obviously got the records of pretty much anything in the world, at his disposal. So they both have that going on for them. And I just feel like they've just been a great combination. I feel like Hodor carrying him around just completely fit the bill for me. So I really enjoyed that comp too.
Yeah, I love where you went with that. I I was thinking about a Spieth and Greller comp for Brandon Hodor, but I was really just going on the literal guy carrying a bag.
Yes.
So you got a lot more substance behind your analogy.
There's a little more substance there. And our guy AK says he always thought Spieth was Joffrey. Can we make a case for that?
Yeah, I mean, if I guess Spieth is a polarizing guy. If you think if you hate watch Spieth, maybe, or you don't like his antics, Golden Boy, as we said, like kind of had everything handed on a silver platter at a young age and lost hold of it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Definitely not hated to the extent, really to any extent. I don't think people hate him.
If you fade him in DFS, I feel like you can have that
you
minor
go.
Joffrey spell of hatred, right? Like just for
Sure.
the 4 days or the 2 days that it needs to happen for. Because fading Spieth to me is like one of the worst people to fade in DFS. Because it always
true.
seems
He
like you're going
burned
to
you
break
at the
your
wrong
heart.
time. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can get there. All right. We got one or two more. Braun being DJ. That was one of your takes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, good
Now,
timing
don't-
because DJ just won. So
Yes.
I guess that's still consistent with what I was going for here. Got them both as ladies' men. Just really focused on women. Good looking dudes. Big drinkers and partiers. You know, Dustin Johnson's a partier. He has comments at the Ryder Cup. Absolutely. Always thinking about a party, even while in battle. It's kind of on his mind that, like, I got to get through this tournament. I got to get through this war so I can start to drink again.
Yes.
So I think that's very consistent with both of them. Both warrior mentality, kind of hired guns here. Definitely Dustin Johnson, a hired gun for Liv. He was one of the first ones to go over there, and he was like, pay me the money and I'm there. I will renounce my titles. I will, leave my legacy behind. I don't really have a name that I'm not like a sir. I don't have a house. I can leave the PGA Tour behind. That's okay. Just pay me. I just want the money, and I want a big rich house and a nice lady in it when I'm done. I don't want to fight anymore. I just want money, and I want women. And that's what I think Dustin Johnson is.
Oh, spot on, dude. And both very frank, genuine, authentic guys. They'll tell you how it is. Like there's no beating around the bush in that department. So I love it. That's probably it's as a quick. I think we're starting to get in the quick, hard hitting firestorm segments of the comps, because I think the reason I haven't pulled up my Cam Smith one is because I have these all in order, and it's all the way at the back, and I don't want to like mess up the order here. So,
okay.
But here's my guy. This is a very simple situation. So, since Ricky Fowler has won the Rocket Mortgage Classic, he just has no balls. And that to me is Varys. Like the eunuch, no nuts. Whenever Ricky has to nut up, it's not a thing. He can't do it. Ever since the Rocket Mortgage, it's been lifeless, gutless, putrid outings from Ricky. I don't know what's happened to his game, but the fact that it's fallen off that quickly since a win, it just shows to me like he's done. Like he's accepted who he is, and that's that. I can't.
Yeah, I feel like Ricky has victimized you personally for that comparison.
But like, you don't agree?
I mean, I was on an Adam Hadwin outright at the Rocket Mortgage, so I was very personally I did not benefit from his win, so I'm like a little anti-Ricky. But I think, he's got so much experience too that he kind of just he's got something to say about everything.
Yeah, and and now the new Ricky is like not even like exciting anymore. He just walks around with the water canister and like it's like he's just adding accessories to himself. He had the hoodie and the canister last week. It's just and my biggest gripe about Ricky, this was supposed to be a quick hit, but he was the only guy to wear a jersey on Saturday playing in round 2 on hole 16 of the Waste Management Phoenix Open. He was 6 over par. I feel like the whole point of wearing the jersey on Saturdays is you made it in there. Now you can represent your boys, your gas motocross team or whatever Ricky was wearing. makes a birdie in the most irrelevant situation ever. Like, no need for balls in that situation. Massive power pack, like 20,000 people around. Makes the birdie on 16 on Saturday morning in round 2. Everybody else playing round 3 can rock the jerseys. No, Ricky decides because it's Saturday, I'm going to wear my jersey. So the conceded putt at the Ryder Cup,
Oh yeah,
like,
ballless.
like, it's just, don't get me.
That's a good
Anyway,
point. Yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
like, let Tommy putt that out. We know, like, Tommy is a skull crushing split second away from implosion. Like, please, Ricky, let the guy live his destiny. But anyway, you had Marjorie Tyrell as Joel Damon.
Yeah. So speaking of the 16th hole at the Waste Management, these are two characters that I feel like are a little overrated. Like, got a little bit more plot points than their character probably deserved. So with Marjorie, she wasn't very central to the Game of Thrones plot whatsoever. But I think she was like a bit of a pretty face. So they try to write her in as like this love interest that never really had any substance. With Joel Damon, he's the star of Full Swing 2 seasons in a row. I mean, the first season, fine, but you bring him back, and he's doing like coverage for Netflix for their live stream of the golf. And it's like, all right, are you a golfer or are you a personality? Like, the popularity is not matching the substance for me. And so when I look back on both of these characters, I'm just left feeling like, I look back on them in the show and in the series, and all I remember is that time they took their shirt off.
Yes, dude. One more beautiful than the other, but exactly. That's the thing. Remembered for all the
Just
wrong
a couple
reasons.
topless heroes.
Exactly, dude. Boom. I'm gonna hit you with a few more. I'm gonna kind of give you. I did a few more quick hits for you. Littlefinger as Billy Horschel. I love
This
it.
is mine.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I have that one too. Yeah, I think a little two-faced. There's a report that came out that Billy Horschel was bad-mouthing Liv while also negotiating to join Liv. So if that's true, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised that, they gaze distantly to the right in the exact same way. So very similar jaw lines. I see a lot of the same characters. If there's one two-faced guy who was always trying to plot and get an edge to rise up, get on like Jay Monahan's good side, I feel like it would be Billy Horschel.
Yes. Chaos is a ladder. I think I've been watching like the best of all the game because I've watched this multiple times, but I just wanted to like revise some things. And that quote comes up so often, and Littlefinger thrives in chaos. Who doesn't thrive in chaos, but thrives under complete pressure is Brooks Koepka. And you had him as Melisandre, the god of fire.
Yeah, I think two very powerful characters who disappear for very long periods of time. With Brooks, you see him at the majors, and then where has he been for the last 7 months? With Melisandre, it's like, where were you from season 4 to season 6? And then all of a sudden in season 7, you're like this pivotal person who just shows up and provides fire to everybody for the fight. And it's like, oh, we could have used that all year round. Like, why don't you just always do that? And with Brooks, obviously, it's like, okay, we get it. You're great in the majors when we need you, but like, why not just always do that? And also just like kind of loathed generally by the public, mostly like with good reason. With Melisandre obviously doing some terrible human sacrifice things. With Brooks, it's just like being a dick.
Yes.
But yeah, not the best reputation, but a lot of power. And not the most available throughout the story arc.
Love it. And I'll add as well that I think the fact that Brooks comes across very appealing, very attractive on the surface, but I think deep down behind the scenes, he's a old, decrepit, broken, injured person that's salty, grumpy, and has to deal with a wife that he got married to for, like all the part of the wrong reasons and stuff. But I think Melisandre, the moment that necklace comes off, old, decrepit, very ugly to look at. And I totally agree with you there.
Yeah,
and then your final one, because now I finally see my Cam Smith, Sam Tarley coming up here. But you had Shane Lowry comped as Robert Baratheon. And I'm so glad I found these two photos because I think they ring the bell perfectly.
Yeah, I almost don't even have to say anything because you've captured the essence in these two
Yes.
pictures. Just two heavy set gentlemen who love a large pint.
Bang. That's all
That's
that
it.
needs to be said. A large pint that comes out of some metal jug, so to speak. And then this was my Sam Cam comp. We've got the Citadel there, just the beautiful golden bookshelves and things like that with Cam Smith with the unicorns, rainbows, and all the memories of fond wins at the Players, etc. So that was that. John, boom, dude. That was. I know we went a little long. I'm sorry. It was tough to leave Game of Thrones takes on the table. It's a
Time
wonderful
flies
show.
in Westeros.
Too much stuff there, man. So, give me one guy that's going to win this tournament.
Gotta be Ludwig, right? Just a perfect setup for him. I would actually say Torrey Pine's probably a perfect setup for him. The only reason he didn't win is he 3-putted from 5 feet, 3 holes in a row. So if he just doesn't do that, if he doesn't pull a Luke List, the Riviera and spot the field a few strokes, he's actually like a good putter, unlike Scotty. Like he's someone who should make putts.
Yeah.
So just stay focused, Lud, and I've got you winning this week.
Awesome. I think that makes tons of sense. In the back of my head, I feel like Ludwig. I'm quite jealous, or not jealous. I'm quite sad that he never managed to have that fourth round, because I think I have this like belief that he's not the best under pressure so far, but that fourth round was really going to tell us what's up, because he got himself into the mix there. Off round 2, he putted his way all the way up to the leaderboard, and then round 3 played nicely. Round 4, we're going to see what happens, with the boys charging from behind. So I know he won the RSM, obviously did that, but not quite the same field. So I think this will be, we'll see, and if it's bad this week, doesn't mean that it's going to be that forever. But I'm curious to see how he handles the big boy pressure, because he kind of got given the perfect situation at the Ryder Cup with Victor as his partner, chipping in on the first hole and stuff. And then when he had to close out the match, he just missed putt after putt after putt. But it was dormy, so like it was never going to lose the match, but he couldn't quite figure it out. So that's my Ludwig take. But
yeah, who do you like?
Scotty, I went with him.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think the fact he shows up here for the first time in 3 years where he has not won the Waste Management, I think that changes the game. Like the fact that he's not having to deal with back-to-back wins this week. He's not Tiger. He's not Max. He's not Nick Taylor. He's not Rory. I think it's more of like a narrative off the course than anything for me, because this course suits his game like perfectly, man. Augusta comps, all that stuff. I mean, he's obviously got the green jacket, blah, blah, blah. And we got plus 750 on Bet365 for him, which whatever, So I went with Adam and Scotty both. I couldn't pass up the 40, so I'm at like 6-1 return. But last week I was at 8.5, so it is what it is.
You're fine. 7, anything over the 7 mark for Scotty, I'm at least thinking about it. I mean, before I think the last 6 holes on Sunday, or I guess before the back 9, it was like, oh, we got that Scotty back. Uh-oh. And then he just kept leaving himself 3-footers, which you don't want. Like he's just got to live in that like 5 to 12 foot range.
And I think there'll be a bit more of those here, right, than at the Amex or the Waste Management. I think it's more difficult to hit it stiff at this golf course.
Yeah, it's also like Poa. More people are going to miss the shorties that he's always missing.
Yes.
So it kind of levels it a little bit. Like, everybody gets 1 or 2 missed ones. You don't have to beat yourself up over it because everyone's going to do it. So he's got that in his favor. He's always a threat. I bet Scotty, last time I bet him was at the US Open. And it was great because it didn't matter how slow he started. You just kind of knew that he was going to hover around there.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you bet Scotty, don't worry about the rest of the card. Just sit back, wait until Sunday. He'll be there. It's a kind of a refreshing feeling, actually.
Dude, and as a content creator that has to write about these massive cards of mine, I've been writing like 10 golfers up every freaking week, man. So this week I just get to write about 2. I'm like so excited just to write about 2 golfers to win the tournament, because I've been writing about like 9 to 12 of them freaking like every goddamn week. So brutal stuff in that the keyboard is finally going to stop smoking. So
I
good
know
stuff.
that feeling very well.
Oh, geez. I mean, yeah, your article it's a freaking behemoth, man. I don't know how your fingers take care of that thing, but it's awesome. So let the people know what's cooking there, John. On the flip side, the final side of the show, about the lines and everywhere else they can catch you.
Yes, sir. What a fun show. Thank you for having me on. I hope we
Thank
can do it
you.
again
Thank
soon
you.
sometime. Yeah, follow the lines on X. Couple articles coming up on the lines this week. Wrote some Super Bowl stuff that is no longer applicable, so don't worry about that. It's all golf going forward. And I told you I worked on HBO through the end of last year. I'm actually working on Uber now, so you might have noticed the Uber Eats commercial with Jennifer Aniston and company last night. Look out for more Uber ads on TV, and don't use DoorDash anymore. Please use Uber Eats.
All right. I use a bit of both, but the decision has been made for me now.
Yeah,
so we are going to roll that out. Uber for the win. And yeah, we're going to be had one other question for you. Are you still doing the short little videos on YouTube at all?
Oh, yes, I am. I actually probably will record that immediately after this.
Oh, fantastic.
So look out for this outfit tomorrow morning and this hairstyle. Sometimes I do it in the morning and I have some wet hair. Sometimes I do it at night and you get the reflections and the backgrounds in my frame. So that's no secrets out. That one will be recorded tonight and released at some point tomorrow.
Let's
on
go,
YouTube.
man. Let's go. Yeah. And as always, a blast to have you on. Great. Surprise it took us this long, but such is life. And I'm glad we managed to get it done. Awesome show we spoke about. Awesome series, some great comps, just the whole shebang. So thanks again for coming on, buddy. I'll be doing my Rotoballer show with Spencer here in 2 hours, in 8 minutes time. Joe Idoni is going live with Andy Lack for Preferred Lines. So the 6 of you that are watching now, take your ass right over to Preferred Lines for the next hour and then be back to the Rotoballer PGA show on the YouTube channel there, or just follow it on my Twitter page. So we'll catch you guys then. If not, tomorrow night I'll be doing my back nine bets at 7 Eastern as always. So catch y'all then.